What's going on, my fellow patriots, my fellow deplorables, my fellow Trump supporters, my fellow Puerto Ricans, and my fellow Americans? I wanted to touch up on an important topic today, being that we're still covering the crisis in Puerto Rico. A lot of people have had questions in regards to where did Puerto Ricans go wrong? Where did we go wrong? At what point did Puerto Ricans become so independent on the United States of America? So somebody brought this question to me and told me that they'd like to know at what point Puerto Rico, basically at what point they became so independent on the United States, not only for help, but for development. Now, first I'm going to start off with a brief history. For those that know me, know that I love history. So I'm going to start off with a short, brief history on the history of Puerto Rico. Now, as everybody knows, in 1493, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And when he landed in what today is known as Puerto Rico, he ended up calling the island San Juan after after John the Baptist, because he was a Catholic. Then by 1510, Juan Ponce de Leon then went back to the island that at that time was called San Juan, and he seen the island from afar, and he said, "Ay que Puerto Rico," and that paraphrase right there, which means, wow, what a rich port, because of all the fruits and vegetables and all the plantation that you can see on the island from afar. The name ended up sticking with the island, so they called it Puerto Rico. So the name remained. By the way, just to revert back through history, the original name of Puerto Rico is actually Borinquen. Now, Borinquen is an extension of Arawakian language, which means land of the brave lords. So anytime somebody calls themselves Boricua, what the word Boricua actually means is brave lord. So a lot of people don't know this. They don't even know where the word Boricua or Borinquen extends from, but it's actually an extension from the word Borinquen, which means land of the brave lord. That's the name of the island at the time when the Taino Arawakian Indians had inhabited 25,000 years before the Europeans came and settled in the island. So, no, Ryan, 1492 was America that was discovered. Puerto Rico was discovered in 1493. So from 1493 to 1898, I believe, Puerto Rico was under Spanish dominion. Now, after the Spanish-American War, which occurred, which ended at 1898, Puerto Rico was ceded to the United States. Ramon Emeterio Betance actually sent a letter to the United States inviting them to invade Puerto Rico in order to get the Spanish colonizers and government out of Puerto Rico. 13 to 14 years had passed before the U.S. government or Puerto Rico could decide on what route they were going to take from there. So from 1898 to around 1911 or 12, there was no definitive decision on the route that they were going to take for Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico stayed. They had no status at the time, but they were still able to establish an economy. From the 1890s all the way to the 1940s, Puerto Rico ended up establishing agriculture as 50% of the island's economic worth. 1/3 of that being from sugar. If anybody knows, there's a famous sugar company that actually started in Puerto Rico, and it's called Domino's. So Domino actually started in Puerto Rico, for a lot of people that don't know, because sugar was a major agricultural resource in Puerto Rico, and that's one of the things that basically contributed to Puerto Rico's economy all the way up to 1940. Now, in 1940, the Puerto Rican government decided that they were going to launch a series of projects known as Operation Bootstrap. Google it or look it up. Operation Bootstrap, which was basically created to basically draft all these tax exemption and property and basically lowering the prices of property and such for in order to encourage United States corporations to come and do business in the United States. By the 1960s, Puerto Rico had established itself as a high-income region, which means that Puerto Rico was no longer a third world country by the 1960s. But here is where Puerto Rico went wrong. Even though Operation Bootstrap did succeed in propelling Puerto Rico forward as far as capital-wise, Puerto Rico turned into a high-income region, according to the World Bank, which means they were no longer a third world country. What happened was that because of the encouragement of industrialization in Puerto Rico and modernization, a lot of people started abandoning the foundation of the economy, which was basically agriculture. At the time, agriculture represented 50% of the Puerto Rican economy. So by the time the industrialization was complete in Puerto Rico, from the 1960s all the way to 1997, Puerto Rico had gone from producing 90% of the products that it consumed to producing 10% of the products that it consumed and importing more than 90% of the products that it consumed. Now, a lot of people might believe that this is the reason Puerto Rico's economy ended up falling apart. No, this is one of the determining factors to why Puerto Rico's economy fell apart. Now, let's go a little bit backwards. Even though Puerto Rico's economy was struggling a little bit, they were actually moving up. The Puerto Rican economy started falling off around 1993 when Bill Clinton took Section 936 of the U.S. tax code that were basically created to help U.S. corporations, to encourage U.S. corporations to come from the United States to Puerto Rico. Bill Clinton ended up contesting Section 936 of the tax code, and then he replaced that with 30A, which basically destroyed Puerto Rico, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because tax code 936 had not only gave U.S. corporations the ability to do a total exemption on taxes if they're doing businesses in Puerto Rico, it also lowered the property value if they were going to open up or build a manufacturing plant or whatever in Puerto Rico. After Bill Clinton came in and he ended up contesting 936, he replaced it with Section 30A. And Section 30A, what it did was that it started charging United States corporations 60% taxes and brought up the property value so that U.S. corporations can no longer go to Puerto Rico to escape the high regulation fees and the taxation from liberal and democratic states in the mainland. Now, if you think that's the last thing that Bill Clinton did, no. So basically, after that was in play, the reason that destroyed Puerto Rico was for different reasons. After he did that, then 30A of the tax code ended up broadening a certain privilege that Puerto Rico had. So what they did was that the Section 30 of the tax code ended up opening up the doorway not only to Puerto Rico, but to the Dominican Republic and to Mexico. Now check out what happens here. At this point, what happens is that Okay, that's fine. Competition is good and dandy. But the part that people are missing out on is that it's not a fair competitive market, because if you think about it, we have to factor in that Puerto Rico, like the United States, is considered by the World Bank as a high economy region. So what that equates to is that if you put Puerto Rico or the United States into a market to compete with third world countries that pay their laborers third world wages and salaries, there's no way that we're going to be able to compete, because Puerto Rico, like the United States, has to follow in accordance with the United States wage codes. So they have to follow the salary and wage requirements in accordance with the United States. So how is it that you're going to throw Puerto Rico into the same market as Mexico and the Dominican Republic, who pay their citizens 4 or 5 times less than Puerto Rico? There is no room for Puerto Rico to compete in that market. Another thing I want to bring up is the fact that not only that ended up destroying the potential for Puerto Rico's economy to grow, but then by 1997, they ended up signing the NAFTA agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which basically gave Mexico an advantage over Puerto Rico. Think about what's going on here. What's going on here is that the Democrats and the liberals have declared a legislative war against Puerto Rico to keep Puerto Rico stagnant and keep them from economically developing. Everybody keeps asking the same questions. Why is Puerto Rico having so much problem establishing an economy? Why is Puerto Rico having so much problem on establishing self-reliance? And it's because of the strategic launch of laws and policies that are basically put in place to benefit people that do not belong to the United States, to the American Union. I don't understand how the United States can give a better contract to Mexico and Canada, who are only our neighbors, than they can to Puerto Rico. Now, if you don't believe me, like I said, you can go and you can look it up. When the Puerto Rican government launched Operation Bootstrap, the economy was growing. That's what took them into being recognized as a high economy region, no longer a third world. But then when these policies and this legislation started kicking in against U.S. corporations to discourage them from going to Puerto Rico and encourage them to go to Mexico and to the Dominican Republic. Why? Because of the incentives and the exemptions that they were giving these countries in comparison to Puerto Rico. So this is a strategic legislative attack that was launched on Puerto Rico by Clinton, and then followed up by NAFTA, and then followed up by the Dominican Free Trade Agreement that also consolidated the marketing power of Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Thomas, and all of these third world countries got consolidated into one market where they pay their workers 3, 4, 5 times less than Puerto Ricans who are United States citizens, and they throw Puerto Ricans into that market and they tell Puerto Ricans, go ahead and establish an economy. This is what's going on in Puerto Rico. This war was declared on Puerto Ricans by Bill Clinton. Look it up. He's the one that contested 936 tax code that allowed U.S. corporations to attain tax exemption and encouraged them to go to Puerto Rico, because Operation Bootstrap was completely reliant on industrialization for the economic development of Puerto Rico. That is why they abandoned their agricultural practices. That, along with the legislative attacks by the Department of Health, imposing all these policies that impeded Puerto Ricans from growing stock, from growing livestock, from raising livestock, from growing fruits and vegetations, because now Puerto Rico is bound by U.S. Department of Health codes and regulations. So it is the legislations, it is the laws, it is the policies that they put in place in Puerto Rico to impede Puerto Rico's economy from growing. And this is not being done by the Republicans. Look it up. It's in the history. This is being launched by the same people who claim to be a voice for Puerto Ricans, the Democrats and the liberals. And it was started by Bill Clinton. Why would Bill Clinton do that? Why would Bill Clinton go against a code, a tax code that was not only benefiting Puerto Rico, but was showing gain. It was showing gain in Puerto Rico's economy. Now, taking all that into account, I want you to take this into account. So, after Bill Clinton contested tax code 936, he ended up replacing it with tax code 30A, which basically took U.S. corporations from having a 100% tax exemption to paying 60% taxes. And then came the NAFTA agreement that basically encouraged U.S. corporations to do business with Mexico and the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic simultaneously created something called the Dominican Free Trade, where they consolidated their marketing power with Jamaica, Haiti, and all these other third world countries. How can we compete with the agricultural, not only agricultural, but the marketing power, and we're being outsourced because of the simple reason that Puerto Rico is still bound by the laws of United States salary and wage requirements. So we can't pay agriculturalists what they pay them in Dominican Republic or Jamaica. So why do they have Puerto Rico in the same market as these third world countries? And that is the question. After they signed the NAFTA agreement in 1996, by 2006, guess what? Puerto Rico has not shown any economic growth since 2006 all the way to 2017. Matter of fact, ever since 2016, 6 to 2017, we've done nothing but establish a $73 billion debt, which is going to be repetitive because of the simple reason that we've been pushed against the corner. The legislations and the laws that have been put in place to basically work against us. Then you have the NAFTA agreement that encourages U.S. corporations to go to Dominican Republic or Mexico in comparison to Puerto Rico. Then you have the Jones Act, which basically impedes Puerto Rico from regulating the price of the merchandise that they're going to export, and they can't export anything unless they're flying the U.S. flag, which equates to paying U.S. taxes on a ship that's flying the American flag. And this is why Puerto Rico is stagnant. This, along with a 40% unemployment rate, this, along with the fact that we went from producing 90% of the products that we consumed in Puerto Rico in the 1940s to producing less than 10% of the products that we consume and spending over $80 million yearly importing 90% of the products that we consume. Because you know what? When industrialization hit Puerto Rico and we started promoting all these projects, they got consolidated into this project called Operation Bootstrap. We only thought about the economic advancements, but what we didn't think about was that as soon as we gave up our agricultural practices, as soon as we gave up on reaping from the ground that we live in, that's when we became fully dependent on the U.S. and on our neighbors, not only for technology and other products, but also for food. Because now Puerto Rico doesn't even produce food. It only produces 10% of the products that it consumes and imports 90% of the products from Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Haiti, etc., etc. And here we are talking about what happened when it all started with Bill Clinton. He's the one that launched the war against Puerto Rico. And you want to know something? The same way Bill Clinton launched the war against against Puerto Rico, Hillary Clinton launched one against Haiti. Because everybody that knows anything about the trickle-down effects of consequences knows that anything that happens in Haiti, anytime a natural disaster occurs in Haiti, it displaces hundreds of thousands of people in Haiti, who then migrate to the Dominican Republic, who displace hundreds of thousands of workers in the Dominican Republic, who then migrate to Puerto Rico, who displace hundreds of thousands of workers in Puerto Rico, who and then relocate from Puerto Rico to Florida. And then right there in Florida, here you are in a swing state, and you're wondering why we were only 2 or 3 percentages away from losing Florida as a swing state and almost losing the presidency. And that's because we're not aiming at the right issue. We're not targeting where the problem is extending from. We're trying to focus on the problem and not where the problem is extending from. That's like trying to cut off the leaves off of a tree every year and expecting that tree to die. No. Every year that same tree is going to grow the same leaves because you're not cutting the problem at its roots. You're just taking care of the problem at the surface. And this is what I'm saying. If the United States wants to solve the problems from of immigration, not only in Puerto Rico with Dominican Republic, and if Dominican Republic wants to solve the problems of Haitians also migrating to Dominican Republic, then we all need to get together and we need to help rebuild Haiti's infrastructure. Because if we help rebuild Haiti's infrastructure, then anytime that a natural catastrophe occurs, then it won't displace hundreds of thousands of workers in Haiti, which will ultimately migrate to Dominican Republic, displacing hundreds of thousands of workers there that then migrate into Puerto Rico and then end up relocating to Florida. This is how you solve a problem. You solve a problem by attacking and targeting its roots. With that being stated, everybody, I want everybody to stay safe, stay informed. Like I say, La Maga, let's all make America great again. One topic at a time. Stay informed, and anything that I've said here, look up Bill Clinton, tax code 936, tax code 30A, so that you can see that what I'm saying is not a lie. Bill Clinton destroyed Puerto Rico's potential for economical development. It wasn't until he changed this tax code that he discouraged U.S. corporations from going to Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico was on the verge of becoming an industrialized and modernized region. Not only that, but Puerto Rico is inclusively part of the knowledge economy. And let me explain to you what the knowledge economy is. Presently, we live in the information era. And in the information era, what do we share? We share information, we share technology. And by sharing information and technology, we basically we help the advancement of other technologies and such. And because of this, to nobody's surprise, Puerto Rico, and you can check this out, this is researchable too. Puerto Rico, or I can post it if you want me to post it. Puerto Rico produces just as many inventors as the United States per ratio. Now you tell me if that's not amazing, that Puerto Rico can produce just as many inventors and innovators as the United States, according to the patent office, as the United States. We are part of the knowledge economy. The only thing that's holding us down are the legislations and the policies that are being executed by these Democrats and these liberals. Because you want to know something? As long as they can keep the Puerto Rican people down, they can continue utilizing identity politics to promote the idea that as a people, you're being held down by the rich, you're being held down by the whites, you're being held down by the Republicans, and you're being held down by the whites, by the right-wingers, when in all actuality, you're being held down by left-wingers. People like Bill Clinton, who contested and replaced Section 936 with Section 30A. Look it up. Stay informed. La Maga. Everybody, God bless. And thank you for keeping me a little company while I went into some details. I didn't know if I was going to stumble along the way, but I'm glad you guys listened. Take all of this in. Pass this information forward, because trust me, a lot of people don't know what's going on in Puerto Rico and why Puerto Rico's economy is so stagnant. And this has to do with the policies that are being executed in Puerto Rico. And these policies are coming from the U.S. mainland over here in the United States. Because ultimately, Puerto Rico has no control over the Jones Act. Puerto Rico has no control over the reforming of tax codes. No, Puerto Rico has none of that control, because you know why? Puerto Rico is a territory. Puerto Rico is not an incorporated part of the United States. It's an unincorporated territory of the United States, which makes it a free but independent country or state. With that being stated, everybody stay safe and stay informed. God bless.